Welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing, and that's Badass Wood Art. Remember to use promo code CT Pocket for 20% off any one item at that'sbadasswoodart.com. And if you're here watching this, be sure to like and subscribe, and you can be entered in our giveaway for a That's Badass Wood Art skull sign once we hit 3,000 subscribers. So, pulling this episode together because we got some news today. That the Vikings may have rejected a contract from Kirk Cousins. It was reported by Andrew Kramer that, Cousins wasn't quite asking for $40 million, but the Vikings said, no, we don't want that contract. And Cousins' camp was surprised. What do you take from this, Ryan, kind of hearing this information?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, relatively vague, right? Like we have no
Right.
idea the contract ask, right? Was it $1 million extension for 39.5 million, right? Like, or 1 year contract for 39.5 million? Was it a 2 year fully guaranteed deal? Like, again, there's so many variables, we have no idea what it is. Now,
Yeah.
I guess I'd be somewhat surprised if it was like a 3 year plus contract and they rejected something like that. But at this point, I think they're just ready to move on. It kind of seems like the tea leaves
And
are
why wouldn't
there.
they be?
Right. I mean, he's what, 35, about to be 35 here soon. He'll be 36 entering that new contract year. Again, playing well. So, I mean, I could understand why they would want to bring him back on a multi-year deal. But the issue is every contract that Kirk Cousins has had here has had us pretty strapped for flexibility. It's not even just like cap strapped, but flexibility to maneuver money around without having to do an additional extension, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been it's been, I think, a time coming here where we want to take back control over the situation and back control over our kind of flexibility in future at that position. And unless it's a long-term deal, I can't imagine we want to do anything like that. And again, it seems like we might be intrigued by some of the different prospects either this year or next.
You bring up a couple points there that I think are really key when we're talking about this. So Kirk Cousins contracts, I don't think the money, at least for me particularly, the money has never been an issue. Like I do think Kirk deserves the money that he's supposed to get. It's the lack of flexibility and the guaranteed deals that come with a Kirk Cousins contract that have always been the issue for me. Now, the only way to get around that is, you know, to work with Kirk Cousins to not have a fully guaranteed contract, which they have not been able to do. And so, to your point there, yeah, I think that the Vikings want to give themselves that flexibility, but also it's the new trend now to have that rookie quarterback on a rookie contract and then kind of build up the rest of the roster. And you're kind of starting to see the Vikings position themselves to do that, with just some of these deals where they're giving themselves cap flexibility for 2024, 2025, which maybe signals that Kirk Cousins' era is ending here sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and again, all the signs are pointing to it. So now it's okay. What's next? And trying to figure out what that is going to be difficult for us as we aren't in the building. We don't know exactly what they're thinking. There's rumors attaching us to Will Levis because of the O'Connell connections to Kentucky. There's obviously there's a lot of fan speculation that, geez, if we could just get our hands on Anthony Richardson, let him sit behind Kirk for a year and develop, that we have somebody special here. And then, of course, I think Vegas odds has us as the number two highest likely team to land Lamar Jackson. So a lot of different things kind of swirling out there in terms of what our future is going to be at quarterback. Unfortunately for Kirk Cousins, it doesn't seem like he's one of those options. So again, depending on what the structure of the deal is, I know the Vikings Twitter sphere was kind of going nuts with, oh my God, he's giving us a great deal or he's trying to take a discount. That's what all Kirk haters wanted. It's like, okay, sure. I mean, if you could tell me the contract and say he was offering to take a $30 million or $32 million contract over the next 4 years, like 32 a year over the next 4 years, and giving us flexibility, then yeah, maybe I would say, hey, we should probably do that because I think he at least has two probably 3 good seasons left, and then, that would give us the ability to move on after that. But, saying he's taking less money and less than 40 million a year, I mean, yeah, sure, depending on what it was, but I just don't know the details. So it's kind of just speculative.
Did I just hear you go on record to say that you would wanna keep Kirk Cousins for 3 years potentially, given the if the contract structure was
I
appropriate?
mean, if it was cheap, yeah. I mean, again, obviously, I've been advocating for us to move on with a rookie quarterback for a while. Granted, I don't know if we've ever been in a position to get one, and I don't know with him on roster, I don't know if we'll really ever be in a position to get one unless we give up major draft capital for it. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, I think, it when I think of the Kirk Cousins contract and just his relationship with the Minnesota Vikings, we always knew a day would come where they would have to move on from him, but I think when you look at where we're at today, this is the most this season or offseason to me is the time where you make that risky move for a quarterback, where you move up because you have 2 things in your favor. You still have your starting quarterback this year, and you can risk the future a little bit without risking the future, if you know what I'm trying to say. So, by moving up and getting a guy like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, if you can even get that high, um, yeah, you'll have to give up maybe 2024 picks, maybe some in 2025. Um, but that's relatively short term considering that you're still probably going to be contending this year with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So really only 1 year in 2024 where the picks are less than what is ideal. But I guess what I'm saying is this is probably the perfect scenario for the Vikings to be aggressive and go get a guy like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, especially considering they can sit behind Kirk Cousins for a whole year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It was funny. I was listening to CBS's podcast, the one with Rick Spielman on it. I forget
Yeah,
who's all on
yeah.
it, but Rick Spielman, and
Was
it
he
was from like a
advocating for it?
well, it was from like a week ago. No, he wasn't advocating for it per se, but they were doing a mock draft with Wilson on that team, on his podcast team there, and Wilson had Richardson going to the Colts at 4,
Okay.
and I found it interesting because Rick's like, no, I mean, if it were me, I would be going Levis. So he's
Do
of the
we
thought
trust Rick
that
Spielman to take
Richardson's.
quarterbacks though?
I mean, that's kind of what I said in my head is like, okay, well, you haven't been the best quarterback evaluator in your past, so I don't know if I trust that. He said he understood the upside of why you would take Richardson over Levis for the upside perspective, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it would take a lot. To your point, there's still plenty of time before the draft before all of this will shake out because, for example, there's been hardcore speculation, as we mentioned on the show earlier today, that the Colts are interested in Lamar Jackson. So if that's the case, they don't need a quarterback at 4. They obviously, or maybe give up that pick at 4 to
Mhm.
get him. So then do the Ravens go and draft one of those guys? Again, a lot of speculation that it would need to happen, but yeah. So we'll see. We'll see where we would need to trade up to. But there's always one of these guys that fall, right? I mean, whether it
Always.
was Aaron Rodgers back in the day, Brady Quinn back in 2007, Justin Fields falling to what was it, 11?
Yeah.
11
Yep.
or 12. Yeah. So, I mean, guys do fall from time to time. And one of these 4 is potentially could do that. And where we would only maybe have to give up a next year's first to move up. And that would be an ideal scenario.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of things can change here over the course of the next month, but I think the writing is definitely on the wall that the Kirk Cousins era is soon to be over here in Minnesota. Um, yeah. Until
Yep.
next time, I guess. Well, I'll cut this part out because we're recording, but
Yeah.
Uh, make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our latest videos and content. We have a video with Chrissy Freud of Sports Illustrated coming up this Wednesday to talk about quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. So it's a fitting time for this podcast. But until next time, everybody, Skull Vikings.